So the first thing is like this. When Aaron dies, I want to go back to the death of Aaron for a second. 842. I want to tell you an interesting shot, and then I want to tell you a real chap. Yeah, a real yeshivish. Yeah, hardcore yeshivish. So on page 842, no, past that, sorry. Page 846. So the death of Aaron, if you look at the bottom of page 846, this is real. This is really sharp. I think if I'm not mistaken, it's the Chassam Sofer's idea. It's really, really sharp. At the bottom of page 846, it says, Kaches Aaron ve'es Elazar beno. Take Aaron and Elazar his son. V'hal osam hor hohor. Take him up to the little mountain on top of the big mountain. V'havshet es Aaron es begodov. Take Aaron's garments off. V'hilbashtam es Elazar beno. 848. V'Aaron yeyosef u'meisham. Aaron will die over there. 848, second line. So when Rashi describes it, take a look at the top line of Rashi, right column in 848. Es begodov, es bigdei kehuna gedola. Take off his Kohen Gadol clothing. V'albisheu, skip that word. V'hafshita me'olov, take it off of him. L'sitam al bino b'fanov, to put it on his son in front of him. And nothing a father wants more before he dies than to see that his position goes to his son. So he's going to take it off. Okay. Amar lo hikanes lama'ora, go into the cave. V'nichnas, he entered. Ra mita mutza'as, he saw a bed that was made. V'ner doluk, and the candle is burning. Amar lo alei lamita, he said to Aaron, go into the bed. Ve'olo, he went in. Pshot yodcha, stretch out your hands. Upashat. Kamot spicha, close your mouth. V'kamatz. Atzom einecha, close your eyes. Ve'otzam, he closed his eyes. Miyad chamad Moshe la'osa misa. Moshe desired that sort of death. V'zeu shenemar lo, later on when Hashem says to Moshe to go up and die, he says, Kasher meis Aaron achicha. You should die just as Aaron died. Misa shenisa visa, the death that you desired. So first of all, one of the Mefarshim points out here, so remarkable, I saw this year, I didn't know. He says, what did Moshe Rabbeinu want? You know, it sounds like, wow, such a peaceful death, like Soylent Green. Did you ever see the movie Soylent Green? You ever saw Soylent Green? Soylent Green. It's one of the last movies I saw. It's people, right? That's where they're right. Soylent Green is people. They were talking about the world is like overcrowded, and the government gives out free bars, these green bars of food to people, to all the homeless people. And then it turns out these green bars are just people who died, and they recycled the people to feed other people. And finally, Charlton Heston comes. I say he's the one who discovers that the government just Soylent Green is people. You know, he goes around. Yeah. So what happens is the world is overcrowded, and then you can choose to die. You go to these dying places, and you go in, and they put on your favorite music, and you go, and they give you some cyanide, and you die peacefully. Right, so there. So it looks like over here, wow, what a peaceful way to go. That's what the plain meaning seems to be. Okay. So I saw one of the commentaries say, what did Moshe Rabbeinu desire? He says he desired to die like this. You know what he desired? Most people die. It's very passive. Right? Passive. They don't participate in their own death. Most people try to avoid it. Here you actually have an anomaly. Aaron is actively dying. Moshe Rabbeinu wants to be actively able to serve God until his last moments, not passive. He's such a loyal servant, he wants to actively serve, to actively go about dying the way Hashem says, okay, die. By closing your eyes, closing his mouth, that sort of thing. It's a very beautiful idea. Most people, death is passive. They just kind of, whenever it happens, sometimes most people choose not to die. But Moshe Rabbeinu here is you're going to be told to die, and you're going to die actively. So you serve God actively till your final moments. That's a very interesting spin on it. Now, Aaron, if you look at the words, it says, take Aaron's clothing off and put them on his son Elazar. So the Medrash says, well, if I take my clothing off and if I take my tie off and I put my tie on you, Then I take my shirt off and put my shirt on you. Then I take my tzitzis off and put my tzitzis on you. Then I take my t-shirt off, I put my t-shirt on you. So it's going to be upside down and backwards, or whatever you call it, inside out, outside in, or whatever it is. But it's certainly not going to be. So what happens? He puts the clothing on Elazar in the order that he took it off Aaron. He put it on his son. And then when Elazar left the cave, they were in a cave here with Aaron. When he left the cave, the clothing miraculously switched into its proper order. That's what the Medrash says. So the question is why? Why is any of this happening that way? Well, what's going on here? And the answer is, this is where the thumb shoots up, right? The answer is that there's a halacha. Aaron was the Kohen Gadol. What's the halacha of a Kohen Gadol coming into contact with his next of kin? It's forbidden. A regular Kohen could come into contact with his deceased next of kin. But the Kohen Gadol can't. He can't even come in contact with his father, mother, the nearest relatives. The Kohen Gadol is not allowed to become tameh in contact with them. Now, at what point does Elazar become officially Kohen Gadol? He's officially Kohen Gadol when he's wearing the garments of the Kohen Gadol, but only when he's wearing them in the proper form. In the cave, he's wearing the garments, so Aaron gets to see his son as Kohen Gadol, but he's not yet officially Kohen Gadol. He's not yet officially the Kohen Gadol. You're only officially the Kohen Gadol when you actually wear them properly. When does that happen? Once he's outside the cave. Inside the cave, there's tumah because of the roof of the cave. It's a brilliant answer, because the Medrash says it's switched. Inside the cave, he's in proximity to his father, and if he's wearing the garments properly, he's the Kohen Gadol as soon as the garments are worn properly, and now he's in proximity of his father who's dead, and he becomes tameh because he's got the roof over him. So he leaves the cave. That means from a halachic point of view, it's forbidden. Leaves the cave. They switch around miraculously, and now he becomes the Kohen Gadol. Yeah, we're gonna.
I was just going to ask, the way that Aaron died, wasn't it not the normal way that Tumas Mace would occur?
No,
So what difference?
no. Once he's dead, dead is dead.
But it was a different form of death.
Good is a different form of death, but he's still dead. You say dead is dead. Doesn't matter how one dies. It's like
So hold that he would still...
100%. 100%. We were not allowed to go. We know that that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they died what's called misas neshika. They died with the kiss from a. Still not allowed to go into the marasah. Kohen can't go into marasah machpelah. It doesn't matter. There's nowhere does it say that the form of death determines whether or not. So that's the answer. That's to reconcile that medrash. It's brilliant. Yeah, Mary, we're gonna.
And the listener doesn't have to get purified.
He has to get purified. Could be he needs to be sprinkled, but that doesn't stop. That doesn't interfere with him becoming the Kohen Gadol. I know you're going to ask that. It doesn't interfere with him becoming Kohen Gadol. You're a Kohen Gadol who's tameh. You have to become tahor, but you're still the Kohen Gadol. And at what point? There's got to be a certain point you become officially the Kohen Gadol. I had a guy who told me once. I think I told you about this guy. A guy here, Yeshivat Ohr Somayach. He was in the United States Marines. So the first day of Shir, he comes in and he shows me that he's got no cartilage in his nose. He could touch his nose to either cheek. Very impressive. Listen, everybody's got a talent. And this guy shows me. I'm sure you got. Everyone has their family members who have certain things they could do with their body. One guy with his toes and one guy with his ears. Everybody's got their. In every family, there's family abilities. With various what do you call it? Which right? So this guy shows me. Hey, look, Rabbi, and he touch his nose to either cheek. He says, I got no cartilage in my nose. Okay, wow, I'm really impressed. This is something to tell my grandchildren about. But so what happened? He told me that he went into the United States Army, and his father told him before he enlisted, his father said, there are two rules in the Army. Don't volunteer, and don't say no. So he gets to his first day, and he's in his civilian clothing, his civvies. He has not yet changed, and you're not officially in the Army until you put that uniform on. So he said this little sergeant comes over to him, the drill sergeant comes over, he says, hey, Greenberg, pick up the broom and sweep the room. So he looks at the sergeant, and he goes, sorry, Sarge, I'm still in my civvies. So he looks at me and goes, all right. And he walks away. Okay, the guy puts on his uniform, and as soon as he finishes his uniform, somebody comes over, taps him on the shoulder, Says, the sergeant wants to see you in the room. So he knocks on our come in. He says he walks into the room, and the sergeant and 2 corporals laid such a beating on him. They broke his nose. He had to have all his cartilage taken out. He was in the infirmary. I said to him, what the nurses say? He said, they were laughing at me. Right? In the Army, you don't say no. Right? The sergeant, okay, and that was his initiation to the Army. Yes, sir. Right? That was the so. But when do you officially become in the Army? When you put on the uniform. When are you officially Kohen Gadol? When you're wearing the garments the proper way. So he only officially becomes Kohen Gadol after he comes out again. It's a beautiful, brilliant answer. I think it's the Chazam Sofer, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Then there's a beautiful idea here from the Hasidic. I think the Rajiner Rebbe says this idea. When Aaron dies, the clouds of glory disappear. Right? We spoke about that. They were there in the merit of Aaron. Why? There's a beautiful idea here. Don't ask any kashas on it. Think about it, because it's a Hasidic idea, but it's a very beautiful idea when you apply it. Why were the clouds of glory there in the merit of Aaron HaKohen? And the answer is, where do clouds come from? Clouds come from vapor. Which vapor created the clouds of glory? When Aaron is the man who is he's responsible for creating peace among Jews. So he's the Ohev Shalom, Rodev Shalom. When people are getting along, they speak a certain way. When there's contention, people sound a bit different. When people are getting along, they sound a certain way. The vapor of Jews that get along goes up and forms the clouds of glory. And those clouds of glory protect us from the spears and everything else that the Egyptians threw at the Jewish people. That means, I don't know literally that that's what created the clouds, but as a concept, it's certainly true. If we want protection symbolized by clouds, then we have to get along with each other. As I've often told you, that Judaism is not only vertical, it's horizontal as well. And if people are concerned about each other, the vapor that comes out of the mouths of Jews who are speaking to each other with respect and encouraging each other in common, that vapor creates the clouds that protect the Jewish people. That's symbolically the Ananei HaKavod of Aaron HaKohen. It's a beautiful idea. It's a beautiful idea. So when he dies, they disappear. Okay. Now take a look at Pasuk Chaf Zayin. This is a very sobering idea. So the Jewish people on page 852, they send a message to Sichon, the king of the Amori, and they want to go and they want to pass through his land. And again, Sichon says, no, you're not coming through me. And they go out and they fight a battle against Sichon. Bottom of page 852, 2 lines from the bottom. Vayakehu Yisrael lefichor, the Jewish people smite him by the sword. Vayirash es arzo me Arnon ad Yabok ad b'nei Amon ki az gevul b'nei Amon. They take over his entire land, the land of Sichon. And then it says, on the top of page 8, we have to read three psukim. It says, Vayikach Yisrael kol ha'orem ha'el, the Jewish people take all these cities. Vayeshev Yisrael b'chol orei ha'amori b'cheshbon u'v'chol b'noseha. They dwell in this place called Cheshbon and all of its suburbs. Ki Cheshbon, now pay attention carefully, gentlemen, second line. Ki Cheshbon ir Sichon melech ha'amorihu. Cheshbon was the city of Sichon. V'hu nilcham b'melech Moav harishon. He battled the first king of Moab. Vayikach es kol artzo miyado ad Arnon. So, Sichon was a fierce warrior king, captured this land of Cheshbon and all of the outlying areas from the Moabites. Then the Jewish people come and they capture Sichon, they kill Sichon, and they take it over. Now, there was a prohibition. The Jewish people are not allowed to fight Moab. They weren't allowed to conquer the Moabite lands. Why not? Because Moab were considered that they were the descendants of Lot, and that was awarded to them. Lot is a nephew of Avram Avinu. The Jewish people were told, you cannot drive Moab out of their land. But what happens if Moab are driven out of their land by somebody else? That's somebody being Sichon. So the Gemara says Sichon purified, doesn't mean pure from the lashon of kiddush, of impurity. It means he legitimized these lands for the Jewish people. That means by him driving out By him driving out Moab, that allows the Jewish people then go fight him and take over those lands. So the commentaries say that it's based on a Gemara. The Gemara says, what does the word cheshbon mean in modern Hebrew? What's cheshbon mean? What's that? We use it for math. They call it math. Arithmetic and math is called cheshbon. The subject is called cheshbon. And it also means that a person should make a cheshbon. Right? When a person does some self-introspection, it's called a cheshbon hanefesh. Cheshbon, you do some self-introspection of your soul. You think of it as it's living with a cheshbon. We talk about you got to live with a cheshbon. You got to live with a little foresight and a little think about your actions. Now, let's imagine this Sichon. What's going through the mind of this mighty king Sichon? Well, he's going to drive out the Moabites, and he's really proud of himself. This Sichon is really proud of himself that I drove out Cheshbon. And what doesn't he realize? That all he is a pawn in God's hands. That really he was used in order to do Jewish people a favor. But even more than that, he's signing his own death warrant. Right? Sichon is so proud of himself. And what did he really do? By conquering this land, sometimes in life a person thinks that he's doing himself a favor. There's a concept called Osher Shomor L'Bailav L'Ra'oso. It's a pasuk. Wealth sometimes works against the person who accumulates it. Only wealthy people can afford to buy Cessnas. A Cessna is a single-engine plane that whenever you read about a crash of a celebrity who gets killed in a plane crash, it's generally because he was able to afford a Cessna, right? And you can name them one after the other. John Denver, Jim Croce, John Kennedy, Thurman Munson was the catcher on the Yankees, right? One after the other, they buy planes. People who can only afford a chess set generally don't get killed. People who could afford boats, ships, all these, or trips in little submarines, right? The people like that. Well, listen, your money worked against you, so you were so happy. You were so happy that you could afford a trip that nobody else, and you could show off to your friend. I got to go down in a submarine. Oh yeah? Well, I'll see you one submarine. I'll raise you one implosion. Right, and then that's it. The people that die, they got all these Michiganers got nothing else to do but to go in these space trips. I'll pass. A space trip? You got nothing else? I'll take my grandchildren to the park, right? And even that with hesitation, right? But I did it. I want to tell you, I did it. They built a new park by us. They got one of these slides that you go down in the tube and you come all the way. I did it. I went up there with my grandson. I said, let's go, Ellie, take me up there. And he was laughing, and I went up there. So I come sliding down through this tube. I almost got stuck at one point. I thought this was going to be a fire department thing at one point. At one point, I thought it wasn't going to have a great ending over here. And I managed to get through, and I come sliding out. And there are these two from Kolol guys are at the park. This was Shabbos a few months ago. These two from guys, Israeli guys, like young guys. And, they're with their kids. Also, they look, and I come crawling out of this tube over there. The guys are just looking like, whoa, what the heck? What is this guy doing crawling out of a slide? And my wife just said to me, I don't want to hear about any problems. I said, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I went up there and I did it. But I didn't. I'm not going up in space. And even if I could afford it, I'm not going to do it. That's Osher. So Sichon, imagine Sichon. He conquers. Wow, he's just so happy. He's just so happy as a lark. And what ends up happening? You sign your death warrant. 1 second. I'll get to you 1 second. More than that. Sometimes in life, a person. What was his whole purpose? He wasn't even doing it for himself. He was doing it for the Jewish people. What that means is, and if you look in the Chovos Halavovos, it's probably one of the most sobering lines that I've ever seen anywhere in any Jewish literature. Very sobering line. A man could work his entire life and accumulate wealth and then end up leaving it for who does he? He dies and leaves it for who? All that work, and he died and just left it for his
children.
If you leave it for your children, not so bad. But he can leave it for his wife, worse than even for leaving it for your ex-wife. Ex-wife, he's not going to leave her, she's an ex. He leaves it for his wife, and that's his wife remarries. And he leaves it for his wife's next husband, who was a guy he didn't particularly like when he was alive. So he spent his whole life accumulating money for his wife's next husband. How would you like that? Right? How do you like it? That's like, what's his name? I told you, Mr. Heinz? Heinz Ketchup? You know who his widow married?
McDonald.
No. John Kerry. Remember John Kerry, the foreign minister of the United States with the fancy hairdo? And Mr. Heinz, Mr. Ketchup died. His wife married John Kerry so he could spend all that money on his fancy hairdo. If Mr. Heinz would have known that his wife was Mr. Ketchup would have known that his wife's going to marry John Kerry, he would have made mustard. Right? I get the last thing in the world, you understand, a person spends his whole life for what? What are you doing it for? What do you do? I just read an article, by the way. I just read an article, very sharp guy. Did you ever hear of the guy? I think his name is Kevin O'Leary. Have you heard of this guy? As he was. First I heard it, he actually made it into Ami magazine, a Jewish magazine. Yeah, that's when you really know you made it in life. If you make it into a Jewish magazine, circulation, 800, then you know you really made it big. So this guy was an interesting article, very interesting article. And the guy knows his stuff in business, and he sold one company for $4.2 billion, and he won't even disclose his net worth. But what are you going to do with it all? And then what? Where are you going with it? He says he loves working. That's what he lives for, working. He loves working. It's not even about the money, it's about the work. Fine. And then what? But eventually it's going to go, who's it going to? So go to your children so they could fight over it? Right? People squander away their whole inheritance just fighting over it. Right? Or you leave it to somebody, to your wife's next husband? Who needs it? That's what Sicho, that's the lesson over here. That's why the Gemara says, Bo cheshbon. To Al-Kain, take a look, fourth line. Al-Kain yomru hamoshlim bo cheshbon. You see that fourth line? Fourth line on 854. 854, fourth line from the top. Al-Kain yomru hamoshlim bo cheshbon. Therefore the rulers say, let's go to cheshbon. And the Gemara says, you know who the rulers refers to over here? People who rule over themselves. And people who rule over themselves say, bo v'cheshbon. Let's make a calculation. Live with a calculation. Live thinking about, is it really worth it? Is the gain of doing this sin outweigh the penalties? Is the gain of avoiding doing a mitzvah outweigh the benefits? I don't know if I want to get up in the morning to go daven. Yeah? So you're going to get an extra half hour of sleep? Is it really worth that extra half hour? Is it worth it for what do you call? For the reward you would get for putting on tefillin, saying Kriya Shema, davening Shema? Say, live with the cheshbon. Think about the cost. What do they call it in business? Cost efficient? Cost analysis. You mean? You got to live with cost analysis. That's the moshlim. The moshlim means the people who actually rule over those. By the way, I heard a guy who, a yeshiva guy. Listen, getting up in the morning is always tough. Let's face it doesn't matter how often you've done it. In the morning, getting up is tough. So I heard from years ago from Rabbi Tatz a good tip about getting up. Well, you wake up in the morning. Of course, I want to sleep more. Everybody wants it. Who doesn't want to sleep some more? So I heard a good tip from Rabbi Tatz. He said, before anything, get vertical. And then make the decision once you're vertical. If you stay horizontal, you don't even have free choice. If you're horizontal on a cold Jerusalem winter and you're covered by 4 blankets, should I get up or not? Listen, honestly, you don't have a chance, right? Yeah, you get vertical, and then you decide: do I need more sleep or I don't need more sleep? Then you could at least try to make a weighted decision. There's some, but if you don't get vertical, so I heard there's a yeshiva guy. What he does is he gets up and he gets dressed, and then he gets back into bed. And at that point, he makes his decision: should I sleep longer or not? Right? Because now that you have your clothes, listen, if I want to sleep, you can sleep. One say, wait, never slept in your clothes. Everybody sleeps in their clothes. Who doesn't sleep in their clothes? Right? But you're in your clothes. So it's going to make the ultimate decision a little bit. We need every advantage, every help. Well, we need all the help we could get in the morning. We need all the help we could get because, it's hard. especially when it's cold, is what he called. So you have to give yourself, but a person has to live thinking, is it really worthwhile? Is what I'm investing my time in really worthwhile or not? So a person has to live with a cheshbon. He has to live with a calculation. That's what the Gemara says about this. Yeah.
How does getting back in bed with your clothes on give you an advantage?
Because he realizes that if I got to get up, I don't have all that much work to do. It's just a matter of getting up. I'm already dressed, that sort of thing. Listen, it worked for this guy. This guy didn't ever miss minyan. He did it. For him, it worked. Listen, everybody's got to find the thing that works for them. Everybody's got to find what works. For me, I found that what Rabbi Tat says is the best thing. Just get vertical. Then let your head clear for a little bit. Get vertical. Listen, sometimes, for example, last night I went to sleep. I didn't get a lot of sleep. Went to sleep very late and had to get up early. And when I got up, I could feel that my head is not right. So I went back to sleep for about 45 minutes. I feel like I got it, but I got up first. I feel like that's not going to happen right now. Other times, I feel like, boy, I'd like to sleep some more. I don't want to face the world today. Sox won, the Cubs lost. It's not a good day. Which chas v'shalom. It didn't happen. It didn't happen yesterday. Cubs are winning, by the way. Good pitching, right? So they do what. So sometimes you just say, I got hassles here. I just want to stay in bed. That's not. And then I got to get vertical and think I can get up. I get up. I have to go deal with it. But it's a difficult thing. Every morning it's a difficult thing. So a person in all of life, a person has to live with a cheshbon. And by the way, sometimes guys will ask me, it is an important idea. Sometimes guys will ask me, should I go to Meron to daven at the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Or sometimes people will ask, should I go to Europe to visit the Holocaust sites? What's the correct response? There's only one response. What's the correct response? The correct response to any time anybody asks this question is, what is the alternative? What would you be doing otherwise? If a guy says, should I go to Meron to go daven? Should I go to Maras HaMachpelah? Should I go make a trip to go daven at the graves of tzaddikim? What's the alternative? What would you be doing otherwise? I'd be in a casino. I'll go to the graves of the tzaddikim. If a guy says to me, I'd be in the Beis Medrash studying Gemara, so stay in the Beis Medrash. The answer in life is often, well, what's the alternative? What would you be doing if you weren't doing this? So let's make a cheshbon. Don't just, march ahead blindly. Okay? One last point. Moshe Rabbeinu's got one more person to deal with. Take a look in Pasuk Lamed Gimel. This is fascinating. Page 854. 7 lines from the bottom. Vayifnu vayalu derech haBashan. They go out by the land of Bashan. Vayetze Og melech haBashan likrosam. Og, the king of the Bashan, comes out to greet them. Hu v'chol amola milchama edrei. He and his entire army come out to battle them in a place called Edrei. Now, first of all, Sichon is the king of what? What's Sichon's place? Cheshbon, right? Og is the king of a place called Edrei. These are the last two battles Moshe Rabbeinu is going to fight for the Jewish people. Cheshbon means you live with the calculation, that's the mind. Edrei is the Aramaic word for an arm. It's the root of the word is the Aramaic word for an arm. So in the commentaries say Moshe Rabbeinu fights two last battles for the Jewish people against the Averas of the mind and the Averas of action. That means these are two forces that have to be conquered before the Jewish people are going to go into the land of Israel. Sichon represents the forces of the mind that need to be purified, destroyed in order to the negative ones, and Og represents the negative forces of action that have to be destroyed. That's why it's no coincidence that these are the last two battles as a reinforcement for the Jewish people before they go into the land of Israel. And then Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Og comes out, and Hashem says, and he doesn't say this in the previous war, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, al tiro, so don't fear him. Implication, that Moshe Rabbeinu did fear him. Ki biyodcha nasati osoves kol amoves artzo. I'm going to deliver him into your hands. So the Gemara says, why was Moshe afraid of Og? And this Og is one of the most enigmatic personalities that we find anywhere in the Torah. What do we know about Og?
He could have merits.
He what?
Could have had merits.
He could have had merits. And what else do we know about Og?
Survived the flood.
He survived the flood. He was a giant, right? He was a giant. The Gemara says in Brachos that Og wanted to destroy the Jewish people. So he picked up a mountain over his head, and he held this mountain overhead to throw it on the Jewish people. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought ants, and the ants, he was balancing the mountain on his head, and the ants ate around. So they made like a little hole. The mountain fell over Og's face, and as he tried to pull it out, his teeth extended into the mountain, so he couldn't get it off. I hate when that happens. And he couldn't get the mountain off. And so Moshe Rabbeinu, who was 10 amos tall, took an axe that was 10 amos tall, and he jumped 10 amos, and he smashed Og in the ankle. And that killed him. So I once made a calculation. Well, if his ankle was 30 amos off the ground, which is about 45 feet, that means he was about a half a mile tall. Can you imagine you're in the what's that tower in the Khalifa Tower? What's that? The Burj Khalifa, and you're up there in the all the way in the top. What do you call it? Looking around, and all of a sudden you look in Og's eyes. You know, you're up at Burj Khalifa, which is about 800 meters tall, right? And you look at this guy. I made a calculation. I think he came out to about 800 meters, something like that, or 3 cars, whatever it was. What does that mean? What does that mean? He survived the flood. And you make a calculation. If Og was around the time of the flood, and now he dies now, I mean, he's no spring chicken. Right? He's a pretty old guy. He's no spring chicken. So, what happened? So the commentators explained that Og had one merit. And the merit was that he came back to tell Avram Avinu that Lot was captured. What was his motivation? His motivation was that Avram should get killed and he's going to marry Sarah because she was very beautiful. Yet, so he did not have the purest motivation, yet that merit of doing a good thing, even with impure, Moshe Rabbeinu is worried that merit is going to block him over here. That's all what a mitzvah, the merit of a mitzvah is. For a guy's a rat. He's telling the husband so that his husband hopefully will get killed so he can marry his wife, and that counts as a merit for him. And that merit not only is a merit, and that merit lasts all these years. And then what does he do? He picks up a mountain to drop on the Jewish people. What does that mean? What he literally picked up a mountain with ants? What does that mean? The mountain represents the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are called the mountains. They're the original mountains of the Jewish people. Symbolically, he's picking up the Avos above his head. That means his merit, because of what he did for Avram Avinu, will stand merit for him. Ants, where is the strength of ants? What's their strength? Their mouth. Their mouth. The mouth. The prayer. The ants represent the prayer of the Jew. Our strength is in our mouth. So Moshe Rabbeinu, who himself is 10 amos tall because he has his own merits, he takes a hatchet in his hand. The hatchet represents the Jewish people who are in Moshe Rabbeinu's hands, and they have their merits. And he jumps 10 amos, I forgot what that represents, and he nails Og in the ankle. Now, I had a problem with this. If hitting Og in the ankle would be roughly the equivalent of poking one of us with a toothpick in the ankle. You poke a guy in the ankle with a toothpick, it's probably not going to kill him. Right? I mean, imagine, I'm going to get you, right in the ankle. Right, with a toothpick. It's not going to kill a guy. The answer is that obviously it shows do as much as you can, let HaKadosh Baruch Hu worry about the rest. You make the shot, you hit him in the ankle. That's the maximum you could do. You jump 10 up, you did the maximum with the hatchet, with whatever you could do. That's all I could ask you as a human being. I'll take care of the rest. But you got to try to do what you can do. Now, this is the kicker. First of all, you take a look, it says, Vayaku Osa, this I just saw. It's I never knew this before. It says, Vayaku oso ve'ezbana ve'ezkol amo ad bilti hishir lo sarid. They destroyed Og and his people completely. Vayirshu azarto. The Jewish people over here, who's leading them? Moshe Rabbeinu is leading the Jewish people. A bunch of people who, they share their kugel with you, and tell a Dvar Torah, the Friday night meal, and they daven, yet they go out and they slaughter people. How do you like that? These are the Jewish people. These are the people, they're running Hatzalah, and they got all sorts of chesed committees and organizations. Yet they go out, all of a sudden they're slaughtering entire nations. And the answer is, sure, because that's what Hashem said to do. You got to do the difficult things also. Can't just do what you feel like doing. You got to be able to go in the opposite area. I guarantee you the Jewish people, it wasn't like, yeah, today's Amalek killing day. Yeah. You did it because you got to do it. You did it. Let's go kill Og. Yeah, let's get some satisfaction. Yeah, let's give him a good shot. And then they all went in a back room and said, you know what I did to him? I took him out so bad. I don't think they did that. I think they went in the back room and they were like, I really wish I didn't have to do that. I really wish I didn't have to do that, but Hashem said to do it, so he did it. Just think about, keep it in proper perspective. 1 second. So I saw one in the comments that why did Og Melech HaBashan, why did Og live so long? I mean, make a calculation. Why did he live so long, and why did he end up getting killed by Moshe Rabbeinu? I don't even know how many years it is from Noach to the, what do you call, how many? It's a long time. What did he do to merit? So listen to this.
No.
The Medrash said, how many?
No, I think it's like 800 years.
Something like that, right? It's a long time. It's a long time. Remember, the Cubs would have won 8 World Series in that time, in that amount of time. It's one that once every 100 years. We're in a rebuilding century right now. So the what do you call it? The answer is there's a Targum Yonasan that says, when Og saw Avram and Sarah, he said to them, the two of you are beautiful like a tree alongside a brook. You ever see those pictures they ever have usually on these cards? Like greeting cards. There's always like the soft focus. There's the sticky ones. There's the funny sticky ones. Funny sticky birthday cards, right? Like I remember I sent my wife when we were engaged. So I bought her a card. I sent her a card, and the front of the card said, "It's you and me against the world, baby." And then the inside of the card says, "And we're gonna get creamed." She didn't like the card. I think I got it for free. So the way to go. Then they got the real soft focus ones, like the real thought, like thinking of you. It's always a picture of a tree and a horse and a brook of water, right? One of those things is always like somehow that's beautiful. So Og said to Avram and Sarah, the two of you are beautiful like a tree alongside a brook. For that compliment, he merited long life. That means a person could build up other people, compliment other people, and that's a merit. It's one of the I'll get to you 1 second. It's one of the easiest acts of kindness you could do is to compliment other people. It doesn't cost you anything. And people feel good. You change a person's day, especially females. All you got to do is tell your mother, Mom, you look great today. Really? Right? You change her day. Mom, supper 3 weeks ago was unbelievable. Really? Right? Just find something. It makes a difference. Even a guy in a yeshiva, you say, wow, that was a really good question you asked in class the other day. Really? Yeah. The guy walks away. I didn't even ask a question in class. I wasn't even in class. Doesn't matter. Find something. Find something. Anything. It doesn't make a difference. That merit is why he lived long. So why did he die? Why was he killed by Moshe Rabbeinu? Because in the next sentence he said to Avram and Sarah, the two of you are beautiful like a tree alongside the brook, but you don't produce fruit. And for that shot, what's called in Yiddish a shtach, for that shtach was decreed on him that they're going to kill him. That means with the mouth, you could build people up, and with the mouth, you could tear people down. So Og, and Hashem gives you what you deserve. You said something nice, you get, what do you call it? You said something nice, you get rewarded. You said a shtach, you get punished. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was nervous about Og's merit. Now you stop and think about the merit that he had, that he came back to Avram Avinu and had zero intent for anything good, yet the act itself was a positive action. That's how a powerful a merit of a mitzvah is. Mayor, what were you going to ask?
So what was the merit for which he survived the flood?
That he survived the flood, I don't know that it doesn't say what the merit was. It just says he hung on to the outside of the teva. And the Gemara says, well, the Gemara even asks, it was boiling hot water. So the Gemara says the water right around the outside of the teva was what do you call, was cooled down. And he hung on. Whatever that means, whatever that means. I don't. All these midrashim, obviously have a symbolic idea. But at the end of the day, it's a very powerful lesson. and I know for a fact you literally could change people's day with a positive word. It changes. It has such an effect on people. Yeah.
For someone like Avraham Avinu, I was saying that to him, that him and his wife were beautiful. It doesn't matter if that would have impacted him at all, just the mere fact that he gave the compliment?
That's a good question. You know, to what degree does that really impact Avram Avinu, who's not what do you call it? It could be. You know, I'll tell you something. A lot of what we focus on. You know, Avram Avinu gets rewarded for feeding the angels, even though they didn't need to eat. He didn't feed them. The act itself is objectively a positive action. What's on the receiving end doesn't matter. Avram fed the angels, and it's a merit for the Jewish people for eternity.
But he didn't know they were angels.
Right, he didn't, and therefore he accomplished absolutely nothing. When O gave them a compliment, he doesn't know how they're going to take it, but he did what he has to do. We have to do what we have to do.
But even though what he said afterwards, that they were not reasonable.
Then your person's accountable for it. That's exactly the.
Doesn't take away.
No, you can't take it away. You did a positive thing. Once you did a positive thing stands on its own merits. You did a negative thing. You did a negative thing, that stands on its own merits. That's the lesson. Somebody just asked, you've heard of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, who was one of the Gedolei Ador. So somebody had called me up from America. They asked me, what should he do with his son? His son is 6 weeks old. Do you pick up a baby when he's crying or not? There are different policies, parents. A baby's crying in the crib for no reason. You know, he's fed, he's all right. Should you pick him up? They like to be held. Should you pick him up or not? Or do you let babies cry? There's a debate among parents. You know, sometimes you let the baby cry for a while. You know, let him cry. You know, he's got to learn that you can't. You know, he's got to have a certain. And there are people who feel, well, he'll cry well, for the first day, he'll cry the second day. Let's see, crying doesn't help. He won't cry anymore. So and this is, you know, there are two schools of thought over here. Whether you let him, a lot of it has to do with your own personality, how much you can take the crying and that sort of thing. Also, family circumstances. You can't be up all night because both of you work. There are a lot of caveats. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said, when a baby cries, you pick him up. Why? Why do you think he said so? There are a lot of people, I feel that you pick up a baby. When a baby's crying, you pick up a baby. Why should he have to cry? That's what I feel, okay? Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, you know what he said? I was told this by his grandson. He said, what is it doing to you to stand there and listen to the baby cry? It's making you a harsher person. So if you're doing it for the baby, maybe. But if you're doing it for your own benefit, your own convenience, because I can't get up in the middle of the night, that means you're allowing him to suffer for your convenience. Right? So you could argue from today till tomorrow, yeah, but ultimately it's in his best interest that I should blah, 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 all that. Right now you're listening to a baby crying. What's that doing? It's turning you into a less sensitive person. Right? So again, I'm not telling everybody to do it. You have to get consult because there are a lot of other factors. My wife and I tried it with our first son. We tried it once. You know, he's up. He likes to be up. Babies like to be up. They like to be with the parent. You know. So I think he was by the time he was about 4 or 5 months, maybe a little older, And at a certain point we said, listen, this kid is going to, we can't do this. We're going to have to let him cry it out. Let's do it a couple of. So we put him in the crib and we let him cry. And he cried and he cried and cried. After about, I don't know, it didn't last too long. After about a few minutes, we just looked at each other and said, let's get him. We couldn't take it. Yeah, we took him out. He was so happy to see us. We just took him out. We couldn't take it. We don't have that personality. Other people, they know, the kid's going to learn. The kid's going to learn from the elder. I'm convinced that it affects the kid's personality too. I'm convinced everything affects the kid's personality. That affects his personality. And it depends what you want your kid. You want your kids to be soft people. You want your kids to be a little tougher. And some people say, yeah, tough is good. Okay, if that's what you want. I don't, it depends what you're looking for. It also depends on your personality. We couldn't take it. Couldn't take it. And I got earplugs. I tried. I couldn't take it. Kids screaming. So he pulled them out. Pulled them out on condition. On condition that comes a Cub fan. Somebody gave me a Dodgers jacket when he was 1 year old. Somebody sent me from America a blue Dodgers jacket. Expensive, a little expensive baby. That must have cost about $40-50. My uncle from LA sends a Dodgers jacket. So I said to my wife, he was 1 year old. I said, well, he's not wearing it. So my wife said to me, don't be ridiculous. So I said, he's not wearing a Dodgers jacket. She said, it's ridiculous. It's a good piece of clothing. So I said, all right. But if it's a White Sox jacket, I'd burn it. She said, yeah, that okay. She said, that she agreed to. So nobody ever had the chutzpah to do that. The kid wore a Dodgers jacket.
I tried